Hey everybody, my name is Matthew Estrad. I'm a gerontologist in St. Tammany Parish, and I've been bringing the Caregiver Coffee to you for over 5 years, and I've also been the Caregiver Support Group Facilitator for Coast for over 10 years. So today we're going to be talking about long distance caregiving. So when there are relatives or friends that live out of town and they want to pitch in with the caregiving that you're doing here locally, or perhaps they're not helping out, but you want to reach out to them and ask them, and you're, kind of wondering what are some things that, what are some reasonable things that I can ask them to do to get involved. So I'll be going over an article from the National Institute on Aging that will give us some of these tips and hopefully some encouragement to take that step and to ask them. And I know depending on your temperament, depending on your personality, it might be easy for you to ask for help, or it might be a challenge to do that. So this might be growing out of your comfort zone. So I'm hoping that this information will start to give you some confidence to try that. And some of you perhaps don't have any challenges with asking for help, but you want to make sure that it is something that um, maybe you need some ideas or you are looking for the right way to ask them. So in a maybe a more diplomatic way. So we'll be talking about things of that sort. So I think it's going to help a lot of people depending on in various situations. So before we get started with this article, just want to tell you a little bit about our caregiver support group that we have on Tuesdays that is sponsored by the Council on Aging in St. Tammany. So this is the one that I mentioned before. I facilitate. They sponsored me. They brought me in for over 10 years, typically every week of those 10 years as well, unless there was a disaster. And even then, we moved to online. So there are in-person options and virtual or online options. So the basic pattern, and I'll tell you how to get an actual calendar, but the basic pattern is this. The first Tuesday of the month, we're in person at the Slidell Activity Center, Senior Activity Center. The second Tuesday of the month, we are on the virtual platform Zoom that many of y'all are familiar with. And if you're not, it's easy to get up to speed on that. You can even join using your a landline phone or a phone, just using voice, sort of like an audio conference or a conference call. The third Tuesday of the month, we're back in person. We're at the Slidell, I'm sorry, not the Slidell, the Covington Activity Center. So you can join us there. And then the last or the fourth Tuesday of the month, and sometimes the fifth, when there's a fifth Tuesday and we get the green light from Coast, we are back on the virtual platform Zoom. So to get information about that, like the call-in number or the Zoom link and the address for these senior activity centers, you can go to coastseniors.org, go to caregiver, navigate over to caregiver resources. Eventually, you'll find my picture, and then you'll click on a calendar that you can download onto your computer. You can print it and put it on your refrigerator to remember. And so we publish this every 2 months. So you'll see exactly where we are because while we do meet every Tuesday, if a holiday falls on a Tuesday, we end up typically not canceling, but moving it to later in the week. So just so you make sure you have all the information, go ahead and get that calendar. And then once you have that calendar, there is a link that you can click or a QR code that you can scan with your smartphone, and you can join our private email list. This also is free, and that just means that I send an email reminder the morning of the group to remind you where we are. So I hope you'll consider doing all of those things. Going to coastseniors.org, finding the calendar, downloading that, joining the mailing list. And even if you can't come right now, or maybe you'll come in a few weeks or in a couple of months, join the list. You can always unsubscribe from that email list as well. So we have a lot of people that are on the list that are not showing up on a regular basis. So it's completely fine to do that. All right, so let's get started with this really important topic of long distance caregiving. Again, this is an article from the National Institutes on Health. And as usual, I'm not going to read it verbatim. That's not going to be any fun for you. I'm going to hit the highlights. Some things I'll read verbatim, but I'll be hitting bullet points and highlights in hopes that you will go to the link that I'll share on Facebook. I can't share links on YouTube yet, unfortunately, in the description. I'll be working on that, but I do that on the Facebook page for Coast, where I also post the this YouTube video. And if you can go to the article, you can share it, you can print it, you can highlight it, you can do lots of things with it. So it is all, again, all free. This is a government resource. So long distance caregiving. There are many people who live far away from their family and friends, and they need help. And there are people out there that want to help. And this article will give you some information on how to do that. So long distance caregivers can take on many different roles. You may be able to assist with finances, with money management, with insurance claims, with paying bills. Gosh, certainly that's a lot to keep somebody busy. Making phone calls, if you're able to, if you have the right credentials or power of attorney, you'll just have to see based on what you're calling about, do you need a POA or can you just have the person's information and by virtue of that, you have access to do business for them. Um, so yeah, so that's information sort of like if an insurance claim didn't pay what it should have, they're typically caregivers need people to help kind of track down information and see what might have to happen. And if they have to go through a process of refiling a claim with the hospital or the clinic, so they can be billed correctly. So it can be, coded and then billed correctly and then covered correctly. So these things can take hours of time. But when you split up these types of things that can be done long distance, it can really be a huge help. You can arrange for care management or in-home care by hiring formal caregivers such as home health aides. You can interview them via Zoom if needed. In person is always best, right? So you can really get a sense of body language and nonverbals and things like that. But you can screen people um, via Zoom or by phone. And if they pass that, then they go to sort of a next phase. You can order medical equipment, medicines. You can, and when they say order medical equipment, I'll even add to that if it's medical equipment that is not covered by insurance, that is something that is gently used can be helpful. You can search Facebook Marketplace or eBay, and sort of track down some really good values on equipment that can be used secondhand. They can help with advanced care planning, such as choosing a healthcare proxy or working with that person and helping them understand that. You can, talk to an attorney if you have that if they want you to do that, of course, and you have the permission of them to do that. You can serve as an information coordinator by researching information such as relevant health conditions and medicines, looking up journal articles on Google Scholar. I've talked about Google Scholar as a great search engine for scientific topics. So this is where you kind of vet the science straight from the journals and not from popular news sites, who tend to take from these scientific journals, but sometimes they may change how it's presented. So that's always good to do. Researching long-term care options such as assisted living, nursing homes, etc. Looking into financial situations such as Medicaid, researching Medicaid eligibility and what that might mean for that person. Finding a financial advisor if they don't already have one. Making appointments, medical appointments, and things like that. Finding health coaches, health clubs that might be paid for by someone's insurance plan. So lots of things. When you don't live close by, it may take more effort to find out what's going on and stay up to date on a person's needs. So here's some strategies and some technologies for staying connected to that person. First is creating a list of important phone numbers and email addresses, keeping them in a shared document or spreadsheet, and updating it regularly. I'm sure there are other programs or platforms out there, but I'm a big fan of the Google Suite. So Google Sheets, Google Docs, and if you're not familiar with those, these are files that are hosted online that can be shared with others, so others can edit if you want them to be able to contribute and edit, or they can just have viewing rights where you keep all the information up to date. They can't change anything, but they can always go to it and read it. So keeping this information is really important. I would be careful though of how detailed information you have that you do put on there. I wouldn't put social security numbers and things like that. That can be shared a different and more private way. So I would be careful about that because while it is private, it is still online, and things happen. People can find information, but phone numbers, email addresses, and things like that, that sort of stuff can be, I think is, depending on your level of risk, I think it's pretty safe to do that. Have a shared calendar online. You can even do that on a smartphone. You can access like, the Google, so there's Google, a Google Calendar. You can do that. And then the docs, the sheets, and the calendar and other things, you can also have those via an app as well. Participate remotely in conference calls or meetings with the assisted living team. So, like when they have care team meetings and the facilities, whatever facility that you're in, they should be having monthly care team meetings, and you can always set those up ad hoc or as needed. Um, if the for persons who are comfortable using a tablet or computer, you can set up an email account for them and teach them how to stay safe online. And there's actually a link on here. Of course, staying safe online is its whole other caregiver coffee or coffees in protecting ourselves and protecting vulnerable adults from scams online. So that seems like that would be a good we have talked about fraud in the past, but I don't know if I'd have to see if we specifically talked about computer safety. Making the most of a short visit with an aging parent or relative. Talk to the person ahead of time. So this is if you are a long distance and you come in town, you want to prepare for that because you can only do so much business in a visit. So you want to plan ahead, check with the primary caregiver, if appropriate, to see what they may need. You may be handling some of the responsibilities while you're in town, also running errands and things like that. So decide on what those top priorities are because they may mean reserving other tasks for a future visit or to be done when you go back out of town and you can do these things remotely. Supporting the person doing day-to-day. Okay, yes, so the caregiver doing the day-to-day caregiving. In some cases, one person takes on the everyday responsibilities for that older person, and it tends to be a spouse or an adult child who lives closest, or might be even under the same roof. But even if you're not the primary caregiver, you can still play an important role in supporting that person. Here are some ways that you can help, even if you don't live nearby. Ask what you can do to be helpful, but also I would say be prepared with a list of things that you feel competent doing, that you would enjoy doing. Not because you're just going to do what you enjoy, because there might be tasks that you don't like that are important and you are in a position to do it. Is you don't want to while you want to get feedback from the caregiver, you don't want to put things completely on them because many caregivers, and this is based on experience and being with caregivers for over 10 years, is that they feel so overwhelmed they kind of don't know where to start. So when you come in with some suggestions, they may take the suggestions or your ideas, might not be exactly what they were thinking, but they let them think of other things. So you're priming the pump, so to speak, and not just putting another responsibility on them to be creative and like be task oriented and delegate. Some people that is a strength for some people, but not others, and especially when they're under stress, that might be a challenge for them. I'm gonna pause my timer. All right. Stay in regular contact via phone, text, email. Just listening may not sound like much, but it can mean a lot. And I've talked about this in previous videos, and I'll just kind of summarize it here. Um, there's research to say that um, when a caregiver feels connected with someone that can just listen, someone even if they're not there. So in this case, a long distance caregiver, you're Zooming with them, you're texting with them, someone that they know is thinking about them, someone that's there to support them, is encouraging them, can sometimes be more effective and more helpful in relieving caregiver burden than actual hands-on care, than you actually being there and doing things. There's certainly value to that, but I say that only just so you recognize that even from far away, you can be a big help by being a listening ear, a shoulder to lean on, a sounding board, etc. So, so important. Um, Travel to stay with that person for a few days so that primary caregiver can go relax, go on a cruise, go on a vacation, go on a retreat, um, clear their head, or even just come in and they don't go anywhere, but you're there to help. They're still at home, so maybe we can say it's a staycation, but that can be a huge, huge help. And I know lots of caregivers over the years have been in our support group, and they say, "Gosh, I wish I could get so and so to come stay for a week, spend some of their vacation time giving me a break." And many of them do also. It's not just them; they're wanting it. They ask, and it happens. I've seen it. I've seen it many, many times, and it's very, very heartwarming to know that that happens. There are lots of family members and friends that even friends that will come in town and say, "Hey, let me give you a break." And you can either go somewhere else or stay. So, so that's about the end of the article. I certainly encourage you to read it because some things I skimmed over, I didn't go over in great detail. There's also some websites, and sometimes it's just good. You might be someone who wants to have that paper in hand or see it on the screen. I'm that way. So you have many modes. You could listen to this again, you can watch it again, you can print it. But certainly I hope that if you found this valuable, I hope that you will share this, not so we get the clicks, but just so we can help everybody out there. And I want to encourage you, if you're a caregiver, um, to keep doing the great job that you're doing. Many times caregivers, they don't realize the enormity, the great job that they are doing. They may feel like they need to be perfect when you do not, and your best effort is really what is needed, because sometimes it's better than what you think you're doing. So I want to encourage you in that, and thank you for doing that, doing this important work for your loved ones and for your family. And I also want to encourage you to consider joining our support group. You can come one week and uh, come the next month and come 6 months later. It really just, it doesn't matter. We're not keeping tabs on people. Um, but we certainly care about everybody that is able to join and contribute and offer their wisdom too, because you certainly have wisdom if you're a caregiver. So. All right, y'all, we'll end it right there. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for sticking around this long. Thanks for sharing. And I look forward to you joining us for some more education in the future on Caregiver Coffee. Until then, take care.